Hello and welcome to Dingoes Ate My Podcast. I'm Paul.
I'm Dave.
And this week we are discussing the episode Benediction. This episode originally aired May 13th, 2002, attracting approximately 4.69 million viewers. Alrighty. So let us start off with the number one movie at the box office this week. Dave, any idea what it might be?
Come with around this time.
May of 2002.
And there was the one from, I believe it was last week, but question whether or not it would have enough staying power to stick around as long as it did.
So last week was Spider-Man.
No. Yet I don't know. Because with this particular year and whatnot, it's been a couple particular big ones that are there. I question if there was some other one that came along. Spider-Man. I'll keep it to the safe bet and keep it as Spider-Man for now, at least.
Unfortunately, no.
Uh,
Spider-Man was on top for 2 weeks, but unfortunately would get dethroned by this little pesky film called Star Wars Episode 2: Attack of the Clones.
yeah, I would do it.
Bastards.
Although it's kind of the case of, oh man, it's a thing, and oh, it's a thing.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately. Alrighty, moving on to the number one song in America this week. Any guesses?
I think maybe just the safest bet and going with the one from last week, where, curse my brain, I supposedly had it.
You are
Like,
correct. It is still Foolish by Ashanti.
it was that. It was just one single word, and I was getting it mixed up with either foolish or like, now I lost the other word I was thinking of. Brain.
Alrighty, let's move on to video games. Unfortunately, we only have 2 for this week. So on the 14th, so the day after this episode aired, if you had a Game Boy Advance, you could go pick up Dragon Ball Z: The Legend of Goku.
No, that's understandable.
Um, you're more of a Dragon Ball Z guy than me. Have you ever played this?
No, and the fact that you say that I'm more of a Dragon Ball Z fan is oddly flattering and also flatly wrong.
How many episodes of Dragon Ball Z have you seen?
Hardly any, because when I saw it when I was a kid, I got too energetic with it, and my parents were like, "You can't watch Dragon Ball Z," and it's like,
Okay, Dave, I don't think I've seen a full episode.
I could manage at least an episode, and I at least made it through at least an arc, which I think could at least stand about 12 or so episodes, which could basically be condensed into about 3.
So you are more of a Dragon Ball Z guy than I am.
Duly noted, but I am definitely not that much of a Dragon Ball Z fan.
Fair.
For all the actual Dragon Ball Z fans out there listening to this.
Alrighty, and normally we don't talk about releases in other territories, but we're going to make an exception for this one because it's a biggin.
Understandable, and mostly just the question of which.
So on May 16th, if you had a PS2 and you lived in Japan, you could pick up this little game. I mean, I'm sure nobody's ever heard of it, but Final Fantasy XI.
Yes. The start of it all. Well, no, with that. I might have getting it confused.
This was the first one they did that was a MMO.
Yeah, with that one. Because
Yep.
I've heard little bits, but it's mostly of its sequel release 3 title releases later.
Yes. I don't know if this game's still going.
No, with how long it's been, I wouldn't be surprised. And especially with how many resources are being put into the new one.
My God, I can't. Okay, so apparently it was the most successful financially, the most profitable Final Fantasy title ever, which that makes sense because you're getting $12 a month from everybody.
Yeah.
I don't see if it's. Oh yeah, no, it's still running.
Hmm.
The latest chapter was released September 12th, 2022.
Well, there we go.
So apparently that's still a thing if you're a Final Fantasy person. Uh,
And weirdly enough, I know zero of anything about that.
I mean,
I'm mildly intrigued now.
you know more than I do because oh no, I think technically I have played a Final Fantasy game. I've just never finished one.
Yeah, because it's an RPG and it's quite the time sink.
I think I started one and I started two, but I never finished them.
Ooh, two is the tricky one.
I don't think I've. I think I. Oh no, I also started seven at one point, but I got about 5 minutes in and got annoyed.
Yeah, that can happen.
It's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because it's seven. Because on the one hand, if you can manage past the couple things, you're good. But then there's the 16 other couple of things, mostly kind of related to when you played it and your bias for going into older style games.
So my biggest issue with it was because I played it years later. I played it on like the PS4.
Hmm.
My biggest issue was the characters are 3D models, but the backgrounds are all 2D, and I found it
Hmm.
really hard to navigate.
Oh, most definitely. It's one of the big hurdles if you don't have really good vision or can't exactly tell what the picture is really showing you, which in a semi post apocalyptic mechanical city can be kind of questionable.
Yeah, because there were parts where I'm like, oh, that's clearly a path I can go down, and then I'm like, oh, apparently not.
And then, of course, there's other particular things where you walk up to it and it's like, I don't think I can make this. And then your character suddenly jumps up and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Anyway, let us move on to the episode.
Indeed. Because, ooh.
This one isn't so bad. The next one, it's not as nice.
Mm.
So, in this episode, the gang starts to plan a search for Angel, but it's unnecessary as he returns to the hotel. He informs them that he found Connor and they talked, but Angel's battle wounds tell a much more violent tale to his friends. He adds that Connor wants to be known as Stephen, and that he has an open invitation to come back. They worry about something other than Connor escaping from the portal before it was closed. Meanwhile, Connor gets room at a hotel for Holtz and himself. Angel shows up in time to stake the vampire Connor followed, and reminds his son that vampires are capable of being very quiet. Because, you know, the whole not needing to breathe thing.
Yeah.
Connor shows up at the hotel, and Lauren tries to escort him to Angel, but Connor refuses to go anywhere with the demon. Lauren has a hard time controlling himself when Connor insults him, but Cordelia shows up in time to break it up. She sits Connor down and tries to explain that some demons are good. But when she confesses to being part demon herself, Connor jumps on her and raises a knife threateningly. In response, Cordelia starts to glow white, enveloping Connor with the glow as well. The blade of his weapon dissolves, and she comforts him as he slowly breaks down into tears. Later, she reveals that she released the darkness and and Kortoth from Connor. While Connor runs to the motel, Angel parks his car and reads Holtz's words. Holtz gave him this letter basically saying that he wanted Connor to go with Angel. The letter explains Holtz's needs to let go of Connor because it was the best thing to do, and Connor will hopefully appreciate it later in life. In the parking lot outside the hotel, Justine begs Holtz to change his mind, but he insists that she go through with what he wants. She uses an ice pick to stab him twice in the neck, and he dies with his final word, Stephen. Connor reaches the motel, but instead of finding Holtz in the room, he finds him laying dead in Justine's lap, two puncture marks on his neck. With great confidence, Connor assumes, and jealous. Don't.
Uh,
So, what did we think of this episode?
oh my god. Just all the particular things with this of the case of Connor is just one of the big wild cards at this moment with how much time he spent with Holtz, how much Holtz has imprinted onto him, and just his abilities. Just a case of, oh god, it's not even a loose cannon. This is like a loose nuclear bomb, just with how much damage he could supposedly cause for everything within this entire show.
Yes, because we're starting to see that Connor, while he's not a vampire, he's definitely not completely human.
Being within the demon realm, sort of either gaining abilities partially in that sort of way, or just with how much he had to be in survival mode, he's definitely stronger than the average teenager.
well, I mean, it's more in the next episode, but we're definitely going to see he's going to do things that normal people can't.
Mm. And
Yes.
again, with Holtz, it was interesting at the very least, kind of seeing his thought process and actions within the entire episode, where for a time, I actually kind of fell for the ruse a bit with the case of, okay, with how long he's kind of been in that case, that he softened, loved Steven for all the protection he had for him, and at least kind of in a way had his vengeance for things. But then at the end of the episode, just the case of, oh no, just the marvelous case of, I can't do nothing, but you have a son who most likely is not going to like you very much.
Yeah, and I was mistaken. It's actually in this episode that we have the fight in the bar where we can see that Connor is like doing these kind of like jumps and stuff where it's like, okay, you're clearly not a regular guy.
Yeah, yeah. And then just other interesting cases within the episode, especially with Cordelia, just the case of she mentioned with things and the case with bringing up the demon stuff. It's like, okay, that'll be an interesting aspect. But then immediately just the case of, oh, right, he doesn't like demons. You're probably going to die. But her ability came up and let that stuff go. And having that minute of fragileness with Steve there was interesting to see, at least that sort of character, because it's interesting seeing with Steve's character that he's teetering on the edge of things. He is ridiculously unbalanced just with being in the demon world, all of his thought process, but there is that softness. You can see aspects of Angel pretty much in every interaction with either him or with the crew. But it's still the case of you have to be careful with it, or otherwise he'll just fly off the deep end.
Yes, and we also another thing that I didn't mention in the plot synopsis, but we see a scene with Wesley and Lila where they're having another conversation. Lila brings gets Wesley to meet her at this bar where Angel and Connor end up having to fight off a bunch of vampires. So there's definitely
Yeah,
something brewing there.
yeah, she's kind of the one that sort of brought things up, knew the situation, and is kind of pushing things along. It's definitely interesting. It's kind of the question of where Wesley is sitting with things and um, her sort of thoughts about trying to get him in or what her big plan for all of this is. It's understandable on her end. It's kind of the question of where Wesley is kind of sitting because as it is, he's kind of, I wouldn't say content, but not too keen on budging where he is right now. But I think in a small part of me, that and being spoiled on episodes or two in the future, case that he is going to come back, but it's kind of the case of what's going to be the inciting incident to kind of have him come back to the group or come back into the story more so.
Yes. So yeah, you have seen a few episodes that take place after this. So I've shown you previously Smile Time, and I think that's the only one that you've seen that's past this point, right?
So, like, fully with that, I think there may have been other things in the past that I've seen clip wise from the show that were around uh, further in the episode that I was familiar with when you showed me Smile Time.
Okay, yeah. Smile Time is great. I can't wait till we get to it.
I think it's still going to be a couple seasons, though. Isn't that around in 5 or 6?
It's there's only 5 seasons. It's in season 5 though. Yeah.
Okay, near the end.
Yes, they saved the best for last. Anyway, did you have anything else about this episode you wanted to bring up?
Hmm. I think it's kind of the case that with everything that's kind of gone on, I think with what you were kind of pushing with me in the couple earlier episodes, there was going to be Holtz's big army of human vampire killers that was going to try either getting a big operation together, cause a whole bunch of havoc, craziness for the Angel crew, or other sorts of stuff like that. But again, once Holtz dived into the demon dimension, it kind of went into a bit of a spot of, oh god, the baby's gone. We have to try and find him since it's Angel's son. And it starts to really focus on that part. And it leaves me interested, but very, very cautious for what the heck is going to happen now with this loose cannon that's flying around.
Yeah. Yeah, something's got to be done about him, huh?
Ugh.
Before he does something ridiculous.
Ugh.
Anyway, let's
That's
talk.
the one other particular thing about him. With what Holtz has trained him for, he's not very much in love with demons, but he's not outright murderous when it comes to any other person. If it was a human being, if they didn't do something wrong, then he would do his best to try not to cause harm. Of course, from previous episodes, he's perfectly fine with causing harm to a human that he deems unworthy of it.
Yes. Yeah, he has kind of a weird code of ethics.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, moving on to some international titles. So in French, it's just Benediction.
Mm.
In German, it's an interesting title, I think. In German, it translates as Father and Son.
Ooh. Ooh. Despite the fact that that father should probably have an S behind it to kind of mix with it. Because, ooh.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Next week, we'll be discussing the episode Tomorrow. Okay, so Angel is happy in his newfound relationship with his son, but Connor has a secret. I'm not done yet. Lila's going to continue to try to recruit Wesley by manipulation and seduction.
Oh, joy.
Lauren confides in Angel that Cordelia really loves him before leaving town for a new job in Las Vegas. Also, the Grislug's going to leave.
Oh, this is going to be the goodbye episode, isn't it, for a couple of characters?
And let's just say something's going to happen with Cordelia.
Oh, boy.
Oh, and Angel's going to get put into a coffin.
I'm sorry, what?
Angel, go bye-bye. He's going to be in a coffin, and he's going to get sunk to the bottom of the ocean floor.
What? The David has stopped functioning. Give him a moment to restart.
David.exe has crashed. So yeah, some things are going to happen in this episode.
Jeez. Why? Well, we'll see.
It's going to be good. So until next time, I'm Paul.
And I'm Dave.